Good evening, everybody. Welcome to First Church, First Center. It's nice to have you with us. We have a small studio audience this evening, but we're always thrilled to have people with us. I want to welcome everybody on the Zoom call. Many people are watching us now on YouTube and Facebook, and it would be great if you could contact the center so we could invite you into the Zoom experience. That way you can have a better sense of community with us. I've been doing this particular Louise class for many years now, since I think it was 1987. This book, which is in my hand, if this is your first time here, the book You Can Heal Your Life was written by Louise Hay. Louise Hay happened to be a student here. She was a student of mostly Raymond Charles Barker, and she got her practitioner training here. And it was the basis, her little blue book was the basis for the book that I just showed you, which is Circled the Globe. I've had the privilege of being able to teach her material in many places, churches and institutions and schools and hospitals and all kinds of places. And presented workshops, and I've really seen it do amazing things for just about anybody who took the material and practiced it. You know, it's one thing just to read it, but it's another thing to practice it. So however you're finding us this week, no matter on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, welcome here. I hope you've been having a great week. So the lesson tonight is about the power that we have, and I know I seem to talk about that a lot, but it's important because there's many people who don't feel that they have enough power, or they think that they're missing something, and we're here to remind you of the power you have and how you can use it. So we have a metaphysical approach, a scientific approach, and we understand that thoughts are really things. We understand that there's power available to us. That was one of the gifts of Ernest Holmes, and he said, and you can use it. You can learn how to use it. I remember at a time in my life where I entered a 12-step program, and the suggestion was that you're powerless. And I had to grapple with that because I don't know if I really believed it entirely. But I understood, you know, if you're involved in an addiction, you can't be keeping on doing whatever you're doing. Something has to stop, right? So maybe we have found ourselves in places in our lives where, you know, things have gotten a grip on us. But when you come into a teaching like this, you're stepping into the realization that you exist as pure potential, that you really have power, infinite power at your disposal, and you can use that power to bring about great change. So this is a place where you can learn to be, people will say, a spiritual warrior. You can learn to be, you can learn to use what Ernest Holmes talked about, your executive power, because you have the power to change. You have the power to alter your circumstances. You have the power to heal. You have the power to create prosperity, better relationships. It's really all at your disposal. So our lessons Thursdays and Sundays, you know, remind you of who you are, what you are, and all the things, if you want to, that you could do to step up and create a whole different type of life experience for yourself. So we'll do our lesson, we'll continue, we'll have some time for sharing. I already mentioned that book, You Can Heal Your Life, is, I think the reason we get so many new people, for example, there's probably 100 people who sign on with us every week or so, more and more and more, and they tune in more and more too in all our different platforms, is because Louise Hay probably is more well known now than our teaching. Our teaching stems from religious science. Her book, You Can Heal Your Life, became such a success that, you know, there's been few books ever written that have been as popular or that have done as much good. So I'm glad that we had that unique relationship with Louise, and I'm really thrilled that I can keep presenting this material because it does seem to reach people all over the place. So as we embrace this teaching, you're going to learn that you can improve almost anything. You will notice as you start to practice this teaching that there will be a quickening. Things you might think, my God, it's like I've been like this all my life. And as you start to get a handle on your inner conversation and that dialogue, things start to happen. There will be a quickening because what's happening is you're stirring up your consciousness. You're stepping out of a bunch of old ideas that you've been believing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But the trick is, if there's a trick, is you have to stay with it. Okay? I wanted to briefly touch base on tonight's lesson had a mention of Mrs. Fillmore. The Fillmores were helpful to me for a couple of years. I landed in a Unity church. That was many, many years ago. But the Unity branch was very helpful to me at the time because they were using the New Testament to teach new thought at the time. So they'd be taking the parables, the lessons of Jesus, and they would have a twist, or they would use those lessons and present them to me. And I was a young Catholic kid once, and so they took the same lessons that I'd learned since I was very young, and they had a new interpretation. Because I used to think, for example, Jesus was it. And at Unity, they would say, he existed like other great avatars or teachers as the great example of what we can be. And he said things that, you hear differently now as we're older and we've been around a while. I and the Father are one. And we would be teaching the same thing here. I mean, each of us are individualizations of this creative intelligence. Each of us are one with it. Whatever it has on a macro level, you have. Each of us are points of power within it. We're sparks of light, points of power. And we have tremendous ability at our disposal. But the thing is, we don't realize that. And we don't operate like we have that. We don't operate like we are all of that. We don't realize the power or the abilities that are latent, that are buried within us. And we get involved in all these stories where we think that we're not good enough, we're insufficient, the things we do to ourselves. And so Louise Hay would come in and say, all healing is self-healing. And so she's really trying to say is, this process of life, it's done unto you as you believe. And so if you carry around a lot of these ideas and thoughts, which many of us do, they just outpicture all over the place. So I'm going to keep talking about that a little bit and see what comes up for any of you. But Mrs. Fillmore and her husband started the Unity movement. And I think they've done some great healing work through the years myself. Mildred was a gifted teacher, much like Ernest Holmes and many of the other people who were involved in New Thought. And I'm going to mention a couple of her comments. First of all, she said, anybody who follows the principles of truth can be healed of just about anything, no matter if it's a financial problem or a relationship problem or self-esteem problems. Most, physical problems, healing can and will happen, but it involves you working with your consciousness. People have problems with resentments or anger. All of these things that people face in their day-to-day living can be healed if you learn how to use the power that you have within you. So it's a big statement, because if you're new here, you might be looking above and thinking of this creative intelligence, this God, this source as being somewhere out there over the rainbow, and we're really bringing you into a place where we're asking you to start to inquire within, because the power that you're looking for, you already have. It's in you, operating through you, as you. So In the old days, and maybe some of you still are doing petition, when you're praying, we pray affirmatively because we know something. Some people pray to something outside of them because you want to make something happen. And when I was a young kid, I'm sure some of you used to pray that way too. I used to go to church before school every day because I had no choice. And I learned how to petition God. And by that I mean it would be, dear God, please give me and please help me with whatever it is, right? And I'll never do whatever again, and please help me. And so that kind of prayer is a petition. When you're up against it, you're in trouble of some kind, or we all have had, I'm sure, tough moments in life where you're almost like crying out for help, and I'm sure some of you have been there. When you come into a teaching like ours, we'll say to you, please try to stop the petitioning, okay? Because if you're petitioning a lot, like you're begging and please do this for me and all of that, it works against you because it's really showing that you have faith that something's missing and something's wrong. So those kind of prayers, they seem innocent enough, but they kind of can lock you into a pattern of I don't have and I don't have. And reinforce the idea that you don't have what you need. It can even increase your belief of what you think you are missing. So what we teach you here, to be effective in your prayer work, you want to be doing something more than begging or petitioning. If you want to do effective healing work, there's a process where you center yourself and you realize that I'm one with this life, this creative activity. And whatever it has, I have. So you can learn to manifest and demonstrate more and be more effective. If you stay with us, we will teach you how. You can learn how to align yourselves with you can learn how to align yourself with what the universe is about. We have a few words that you would learn if you were in some of our other classes that describe how this power works and what it is. Of course, it's always important to think of it as a presence, and it has attributes. The ones I was taught always were peace, power, love, joy, beauty, infinite wisdom, and intelligence. So if you're wanting to change on the outer part of your life and your relationships, your prosperity, or if you're wanting anything to happen to change, there first needs to be a change or a shift within, right? So what we're wanting to do here is we're wanting to align ourselves with the givingness of life. And remember, we want to center ourselves and get connected. We want to recognize that there is this power and that it shows up as peace, power, love, joy, beauty, and wisdom, and creative intelligence. And then, so if you center ourselves in this God reality, we want to start developing some new spiritual habits. Louise Hay, in You Can Heal Your Life, she used a lot of affirmations. And when I was younger, I had sticky notes on everything and magnets on refrigerators. And they're really powerful and they're helpful. Things like, I am supplied and supported, all is well. Or you make up your own, right? So if you want to move up from what you've been creating with your own, your mind and your consciousness is creating your reality. If you want to have that shift, then you've got to have the willingness to level up and think some new kind of thoughts. We want to re-examine some of the choices that we've been making. Our life is about us. Our life is reflecting us, and the good news is that we're all free to turn it around. So you might be looking at your life this week, and it may be great, and if it is, keep up the good work. If it's been rough, the thing to understand is your life is a reflection of your understanding, and so we can turn it around. We don't have to keep on repeating what's been going on over and over again. Louise Hay and Ernest Holmes both spoke to the fact that there is something within you that's always attempting to get your attention. I used to call that divine discontent. But there's this thing, you're one with creative intelligence, and you've heard it described by other people in different ways. They'll say there is a small voice within you, there is spirit within you, but nobody has to scold you or tell you that you're wrong about something, because you always know yourself when you're off track. See, you have this internal guidance system that's always, in its own way, communicating to you. I used to say you can't stop it, because it won't be stopped. You know, you can try to tune it out a little bit, like loud music, or you get, I don't know what you can do. You know the things you can do, but you can't really extinguish it, because it's always there, it's always speaking. I had a teacher years ago who was really the best. And in our classes, when he would ask questions, we would say, oh, I don't know what to do. Or, I don't know. And he would challenge us on the spot. He would say, you know, and you know you know that you know. And then we used to smile, because we did know. I mean, there's a part of you that knows when you're off track. You're connected with spirit. Nobody has to tell you. You don't need to be, no one needs to slap your hands. You have an internal guidance system. And if we need to change and we need to adjust, I mean, there's a part of you that really is longing to grow and evolve. That's what spirit does. It kind of like pushes this itself to you. Emerson years ago said the dice of God are always loaded. And I didn't like that statement when I was younger, but what he was really trying to say is you're going to evolve one way or another. Now, you can either evolve consciously, right, which is by surrendering to what God is and aligning yourself with what God is, and then it'll be easy. Or you can resist. You can resist and resist and resist. And when there's resistance, there's going to be pain, plain and simple. And there's going to be, lessons, plain and simple. You've heard before, whatever you resist will persist. Or we've had other ministers explain it, the universe will give you a nudge. If you're off track, you kind of like know it. And you can ignore it. But what will happen with that particular issue is it will represent itself again and again. I've heard it said before in jest, same song, different verse, a little bit louder and a little bit worse. And so we used to joke, okay, well, I would rather learn by getting the nudge than getting the cosmic 2x4 or something worse. It's not that the universe is out to get anybody, but you're here as a spiritual being, and you're here to learn, and you're here to evolve, and you're here to grow. And if you're not cooperating with that, there will be lessons. So God is not out to get you, but there's a need for all of us to expand. We're here to evolve. We're here to grow. So understand that there's something within you that's an aspect of this creative intelligence. You're one with it. It wants to express itself more fully through each and every one of us. So when we come to classes like this, we learn how to kindle that flame within that's always trying to gain expression anyway. And as we do so, we can learn to master the possibilities, which are really endless, because each of us are individualizations of it. So we want to develop a plan that works more effectively and start to stick with it. I was reminded in this lesson, there was a Disney cartoon character, special agent. He or she was called the special agent. And one of the sayings it had is, everything's in the plan. It's part of the plan. So whatever the heck is going on in your life, whatever is happening right now in your life, whatever has been happening through your life, it's all been part of the plan. And someone told me something brilliant, probably, 25, could be 30 years ago. And they gave me something to think about. And I thought I'd share it tonight. It was a minister friend who said to me, all the healing is already done in the mind of God. And now, that took me a lot of time to really fully understand and digest. It took me a long time. But you start to get an understanding that life is operating in perfection, in perfect ways. And each of us are where we need to be, learning what we need to learn. Wherever you have been and whatever you have learned up to this point in time has been necessary to bring you to the place where you are. So the healing is happening. Now, why do I want to resist it? Why can't I at this point begin to slow down a little bit, take that pause, get connected, and appreciate the beauty that's here, that's moving through my life, so I can experience more joy and more peace today. Each of us are unfolding and we're becoming more. We're expressing ourselves with greater awareness. So from a spiritual vantage point, the healing has occurred and will continue to occur because we're evolving. And we could really all kind of like bring that in and appreciate it more. I know I can learn to cooperate with it more. I can learn not to resist. If you're resisting what is, if you're constantly in resistance, and you're out of alignment, and you're not trusting, and you don't have any peace or power, joy, beauty, or wisdom, that's where I'm being stuck. I don't have faith, right? I don't believe, and so we affirm that that we have willingness. We state clearly that we are supplied and supported. And then we begin to see evidence of that. If I know that I have parking spaces, or I know that I have financial supply, if I know it and I believe it, guess what? It'll show up. But if I don't believe it, if I think life is working against me, and I have a consciousness of poor me, and I'm carrying around this whole victim thing, then it's amazing how that all shows up too, right? So we begin to understand that no matter what is going on, there is still divine right action. So there is God in everything that's happening in our life. There is an unfolding process always going on. And once we know that, we want to learn how to cooperate with it. It used to help me understand that my job was to become more peaceful, more loving, more understanding, and to lighten up a little bit and have more joy and focus on beauty and wholeness. So if you're going to heal, then you're really going to think about how can I transform? What can I let go of? And it will help you definitely to have a plan. And to have a plan that will work, that you can use and you can stick to, and something that has a little bit of consistency to it. I've been teaching religious science for, since probably around 1990, or something like that, and I've been presenting Louise classes even before that. And I've seen people come into the centers and drop into our centers, and they come and they stay for quite a while. They love what we teach, but not everybody wants to do the work. Not everyone wants to stick with it and practice it. So they go back out into the world, and very soon, they'll find that they're back into their old thinking. And we see some of them come back, and they say, I don't know I ever left. Because when you're out there doing solo, you're forgetting that you're connected oftentimes. We taught before, Barker had a class, in the morning you say hello, and what comes after that, right? It's that dialogue that we have to get a handle on. If you have a dialogue where everyone is here to be helpful, and every encounter is a holy encounter, and if you've got that kind of consciousness where you have positive expectancy, or Edwina Gaines used to say, I'm here to see the God and the good, and she kept on, her practice was to keep seeing the good. And if you're able to just keep bringing yourself back and getting connected and realizing I'm one with the one, and I'm here to see the good, if you're doing that, you're going to open up doors and avenues in mind where you're going to see things that most of the world doesn't see, because most of the world is living in reaction to everything in the world. So this is a different type of person who really has the desire to come from a connected place. Okay? I could see peace instead of whatever it is that I'm focused on. I could see love. I could see joy. I don't have to be part of the mess. I don't have to be part of the problem. I don't have to be part of the gossip. I'm here to be a lifter. I'm not here to be a drag on life. I'm here to be a cheerleader. I'm here to say the kind word. I'm here to encourage people as best I can. Most of the world is doing it the other way, by the way. Most of the people are focused on what's wrong and what's missing. They'll turn on the nightly news shows and they'll have conversations with their friends about who's wrong and who's right and all the negative things that they can muster up. We're not here to judge them because they're spiritual beings and they're evolving, and we're all evoluting along, and we're each in a different place, and we all make mistakes. So what we do here is we put our focus on ourselves. We clean up our own side of the street. And the thing about that is the more we do that, we have less issues with people, and we live experiencing more joy and more happiness. As I said, most of the world is doing it another way. And whatever you've been doing, whatever has been going on, or whatever you have lost, whatever you have suffered, or whatever you have been through, or put yourself through, was all part of a plan, and since you were just doing the best you could with what you had. But that doesn't mean it has to be the future. I'll invoke Raymond Charles Barker right now. He said, yesterday ended last night. So starting here, starting today, you can begin again. And you can resolve to do that tomorrow too. There's an old sayings from the 12-step programs you hear me say, it's never too late to turn your day around. So if you've had a rough morning or rough afternoon, you can center yourselves, you can take that pause, and you can get centered and get connected and remind yourself that I'm one with all good, and that I declare, I am supplied and supported right now. And you do that, you're going to start to heal your life because you're starting to use the power that you have. You're in a higher place, you're in a different place, you're definitely in a better place of understanding when you get connected. So we're here to learn in this class how to master the possibilities, and the first thing to do is to stay connected. So as often as you can plug into this class, it will help you. Same thing for Sunday mornings, because we don't cost you anything. You can tune in and just be reminded, and also develop some associations and friendships with like-minded people. You're here to have a great life, and we'll always remind you of that, and there's nothing and no one stopping you, really, except ourselves. We intended this teaching to create a world that works for ourselves. And it's ambitious to think we're going to create a world that works for everybody. That's one of the slogans that some of the movement uses, but our focus really rightly needs to be on our own selves, because when we clean that up, when we really do that work on ourselves to cancel out all that stuff, you'll be amazed how everything starts to work with other people. Again, Louise stated, all healing is self-healing. And we want to create a world where nothing and no one is against us. And how do you think we can do that? If we want to create that type of world where there's nothing against us and we're not against ourselves, it begins with our most important conversation, which you hear me talk about every Thursday, the one that matters most. It's the one that you're always having with you. This is part of the reason I've been called to teach this class for over 25 years, because your inner dialogue, your inner conversation is always reflected in your world. It's just that simple. It's all about you. Life reflects you. Life says yes to you. And if you're so preoccupied with tearing yourself apart, my God, somehow I hope we all wake up and stop. Stop in the name of love. As soon as you see yourself doing it, you make a game out of it, because, when I say it's pathetic, it's like it seems what we do. So we want to get a handle on it. We want to stop it and do it gently. Do it, Louise would suggest, treat yourself like you are your own best friend. Lovingly and gently, just get yourself back on track. She'll say, don't use this as another means to beat yourself up. Just become aware and gently bring yourself back. As we learn to do that, we're going to learn to master the possibilities, and we will there will be a quickening, and you're going to create a greater life. So My suggestion is plug in here as often as you can. Invite your friends. Now we have a community that's nationwide and it's international, and there's many hundreds of people who are viewing our messages, and they're helping a lot of people. You also want to learn to engage in some regular spiritual practices, and that means tune in not once like every 2 months or something, but do some things on a regular basis to remind yourself of some of these things. There ideally would be some daily practice, and I'm not particularly attached to any one, but I think they're all good. Some people, I for many years did journaling. Some people really like to meditate. Some people really arrive at points of contemplation and rejuvenation through their own particular art, or having quiet moments in nature. A lot of our great transcendentalists, are very much a part of nature and having spiritual experience in nature. But there needs to be a place somehow within you, or a place to go, or a time where you get to that place within yourself where you can quiet yourself down and invoke Ram Dass with the idea of be here now, where you kind of like slow that whole, swirl of what some people call a rat race down, where you can be centered and know that all is well. Something that will bring you back to the center. Now, we will teach you one of the ways. We will teach you affirmative prayer. There's 5 steps. We'll probably do another class on that. That's excellent. Thing I like about affirmative prayer, I'm not going to compare it to meditation, but the thing I like about affirmative prayer is you start to use your own executive power to proclaim what it is that you know that you have. You declare that you're powerful. You'll declare that you're healthy. You will declare that you're whole. You'll declare that there's a healing pattern operating in you, say in your heart, your circulatory system, or your body. So if you choose to learn how to do affirmative prayer, you're actually learning to direct, healing within your own life. That goes back to the way they teach religious science to the kids with the stagecoach. Again, you get out of the comfort zone of the coach and you get up onto the platform. And Ernest Holmes said there's power for good in the universe and you can use it. So the invitation is to get out of the coach and to get up there and take the reins and begin to use your executive power. Oftentimes we defer. We give our power away to everybody. And we get in the coach and we're along for quite a ride. You can actually direct your own life to a very large extent. So any of these things mentioned, and probably many more, can bring you to a place where you're taking a pause, where you're centering yourself, and where you can start to sense this presence. And this is really, from my younger days, where I was involved in a lot of this activity, we use a phrase, we want to learn to practice the presence. Because this thing we're talking about is never an absence. It's always imminent. It's always here. Now, we do a lot to drown it out, but it can't be silenced. So we invite you to commune with it and let it inform you. I've been a student, and I've had students taking these classes, and they fall off the grid occasionally for a while, and they come back, as I said before. It's very easy to forget that you are so supplied and so supported. And it's very easy to forget that you are one with the one, and that you have amazing power to heal. So I always try to personally stay in a classroom, either to teach one or listen or partake, and I've been a teaching assistant. I never want to get too far away from this. I told this story to this group once before, maybe even twice over the years, that when I was younger, I used to hang out at a Krishna temple in Florida, and because they had great food there. And years ago, all those monks were in the airports, you might recall if you're my age, and they were always wearing saffron robes, and they were chanting all the time. I don't think they do that anymore. And they were chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Rama. There were like 6 or 7 different words, and they all meant God, right? And they seemed to be in some type of rapture, and I remember talking to my teacher about it one night, and he said, Greg, if you were out there thinking about God all day long and talking about this presence and chanting about it, he said, you'd be blissed out of your gourd too. So the thing is, where are you putting your time? Where do you put your attention? We in this teaching, we want to center ourselves in the recognition that there is this presence, and it's here, and it's available. We don't chant all day long, but to the extent we can bring it into our awareness and center ourselves, then we're going to realize that there is power, and that we're part of it, and we're one with it. And we become filled with joy and a sense of deeper connection and faith. And we come to know that as we learn to work with it, then we start to see that it's operating through us, and we start to understand that it's responding to us. We want to release the negative thoughts. We want to release resentment. We want to release the need to gossip or be part of anything, anything that's about anger or resentment, any of that stuff. All gets in the way. So, in the Science of Mind teaching, we don't wish for things to happen to improve. Nothing's going to happen for you by hoping for things to happen. Things will change as you know the truth, and you know that there's a pattern of wholeness and health and healing and divine patterns of, in operation in all areas of your life. I learned that one from Ernest Holmes years ago. He was always talking about wishing and hoping and all of that. When I was at Unity, there was a suggestion that we learn how to center ourselves and take a time out, right? Learn to calm ourselves down and be quiet and know that you are God. And some of you will find that to be too much. But, the idea is bring yourself to a place where you can sense and feel that connection. Do whatever it takes until you sense that there is a peace and there's a power and a presence within you, because there is. And you won't notice it unless you slow yourself down enough so you can get in touch with it. Do whatever you need to do to bring yourself to that place, because that's the first step of our plan, the plan for conscious spiritual expansion or any hope of manifesting the kind of life you want. And every Thursday and every Sunday, we want to get to that place, and we want to remind you that you can go there too. And for many of you, it's buried deep inside. Some of you are looking for salvation outside. Some of you are looking for it from a God above. But I want to say to you, as I say every week, you have this power. It's available to you. You're one with it. But I think it was Raymond Charles Barker, maybe it was Ernest Holmes, who said you have an enormous bank account downtown with your name on it. All you have to do is learn how to receive the good that's already within you. This power you have can move mountains. It can take you any place you want to go. So everything in life is interconnected. If you don't know that, I hope you learn that. If you're hearing any of this for the first time, you're on the right call for the right night, hearing the right message. You're not here by accident. So we want to have everybody try to bring themselves to a place where you realize that you're one with everybody else, and you realize that everybody on this call and all the people you know are really evolving, and they're doing the best that they can. You're not in competition with anyone. Everyone's in the right place. We want to learn how to cancel any negative things that come up. Wherever you find yourself doing a negative thought about yourself or another person, just gently stop yourself. Cancel, replace, neutralize, whatever you need to do. So I think that's as much as I wanted to share. One thing that I will say that it's an important lesson. Many of us are focused on the outer, and one of the truths of any metaphysical teaching is that there's nothing truly outside of us. So there was a saying I used to hear for years: in truth, there's nothing outside of me. I'm creating my own life. I'm really assigning the roles to everybody in my life too. I'm creating them to be good guys or bad guys or whatever. So start to pay attention what you're creating situations to be, what you're creating people to be. Because in truth, you're the one who's doing the creating. Take all that power back with yourself. When we start working with our form of prayer, affirmative prayer, our prayer is powerful. It's a very powerful process, but once again, the very first step in self-healing and demonstrating the kind of life that you've come here to express is by centering yourself in that power and recognizing that you are part of that power and that it's responding to you. You're one with it. We recognize that there is this one power, one energy, one presence, and that we definitely can learn how to use it. And as you think of everybody in the world, we think of them, we're one with everybody. So we want to bring all these thoughts together and realize that I am responsible for my life, is what Louise Hay said. I want to go over a couple of the points of her philosophy before I turn the call over to you. I already said, but she said, we're each responsible for our own thoughts, right? And our thoughts are creating our experiences. Every thought we think is creating our future. And we're always in a new moment, and every new moment we get to choose. And you've heard me say before, Louise said, I've counseled and listened to thousands of people, but the bottom line for everybody, if you get right down to it, is they don't really feel good enough about themselves. So all healing is self-healing. The work we do is to turn that all around and to extend love and forgiveness towards ourselves and to every human being we meet. If you do that, you'll find all these patterns which have been, causing havoc in your life will begin to disappear. Louise said, releasing resentment will dissolve anything up to including cancer. You have the power to heal. If you don't, what happens, her own life story is she said, I kept on having more and more pieces removed from me. She says, I wanted to get at the underlying patterns that really brought me these circumstances. And lastly, she said, our goal is to work on self-approval and self-acceptance in the present, in the now, are the keys to everything, the keys to all positive changes. And when we really love ourselves and love others, everything in our life will work and works.